accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Vice President Kamala Harris giving a high-stakes speech at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, officially accepting the Democratic Party's nomination.
In her speech, she touched on what she will do if she's elected president, including pushing Congress to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the bipartisan border security bill that was killed by Republicans in the Senate earlier this year. Now, joining us with reaction to the speech is political strategist Matt Klink. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
Let's get an overall view just from you. What did you think? I mean, did she do what she needed to do? Did she look presidential? Did she sound presidential?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're the Democrat, you're any one of a number of E words: energized, excited, enthusiastic. She gave a disciplined, roughly 40-minute speech, contrasted with a rambling hour and 40-minute speech by Donald Trump. That really introduced her to many Americans who, even though she's vice president, they don't know who she is or what she stands for. So it was a really, really successful speech for her. Now she has 10 weeks to make the case to the American people.
Okay, so let's get to some of the meat of the speech last night. Vice President Harris promised that if elected, she would push to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. She hit former President Trump for his role in the January 6th Capitol riot, saying that in many ways Donald Trump is an unserious man, but that the consequences of putting him back in the White House are extremely serious. And she went on to say he tried to throw your votes away. Is this a top issue for voters come November?
It's a top issue for Democrats.
Okay.
And don't forget, conventions are to motivate the workers to get out and press for the remaining time before Election Day. And she was successful in doing that. She spent half of her speech on her biography and half of it largely on platitudes that are not very specific, but things that will attract people to her. But again, she's going to have to get way more specific on certain things.
Was last night the time, though, to give a detailed policy presentation of what her plans are?
No, but a little bit more specifics would have been nice. She's released two things in specific: an economic plan that was largely panned because it wants to institute 1970s era price controls. And the second one is
although she hasn't really, she just said she wants to get the grocery prices down, or the gouging at the grocery store down.
And that she would use the federal government to go after companies that are allegedly gouging.
Right.
And then the second one is she's introduced a $5 trillion tax plan over the next decade that includes taxing unrealized capital gains. So anybody with a 401k, they're going to get hit for unrealized capital gains. So her election strategy, I think, is brilliant right now, though. She's focusing on, I'm not Donald Trump, so vote for me. And that at least appeals to almost a majority of the United States voters. And she's sprinkling in enough public policy to let people know directionally where she goes, because once she does get specific, as I was just saying, then people on the left and the right start picking her apart.
Let's talk about the border. That is a big issue for voters, whether you're living in a border state or not. She said that former President Trump made Republicans kill that Senate bill, the bipartisan border security bill, earlier in the year. She went on to say she refuses to play politics with our security. I think for those undecided voters, for her to kind of blame Republicans for what's been going on at the border the last couple of years, will that work with them?
It's extremely difficult to do. The U.S. voters have seen at least 10, upwards of 12 million people come across illegally because of the Biden and Harris policies. So to say that Trump killed the border bill, that's a Democratic trope that they're using. The reality is, though, that the border has remained open. Joe Biden, through an executive order, slowed it, which is fantastic.
I mean, illegal crossings are down.
They are, but why didn't he do it 3.5 years ago?
Right.
So that's the challenge here. I mean, again, her campaign strategy is brilliant. She's almost making Donald Trump the incumbent, and Kamala Harris is for hope and change and everything that's fresh and new. If her campaign can pull it off, it will be one of the most epic turnarounds in U.S. election history.
The Democrats are also making access to abortion a central part of the campaign. How effective and important do you think that issue is in the upcoming election?
Abortion is one of those issues where you're either for it or you're against it. There aren't a lot of people in the middle that are undecided. And Americans are divided on it. Americans say that they support Roe v. Wade, which is a 23-week for viability limit.
But polls have shown that most Americans favor legal abortion.
Well, they do, but with limits. And most Americans, when you ask them, they say 12 to 15 weeks is the limit. So the question that Democrats don't want to answer is, what's their limit? Republican limits in some states are extreme, and frankly, they're ridiculous.
I mean, most people are not getting late-term abortions in this country.
Then why not outlaw them?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is. But again, this is all about politics, and it's all about perception. Kamala Harris swung right back into the middle last night where she needs to be to get those votes come November. This is a turnout election. Most people know what they're already going to do. The number of swing voters, it's almost insignificant. Who is best at turning out their voters will determine who wins on November 5th.
Another issue, war in Gaza at the forefront of the race. There are pro-Palestinian protesters that were outside of the convention center. Vice President Harris, in her speech last night, she pushed for a hostage release and a ceasefire deal as well. Do you think she towed the line too much? Did she give enough detail as to what she's going to do if she were to become president?
This is a really tough issue for Democrats across the board because the pro-Palestinian, or in some cases even pro-Hamas support among the Democrats in Congress is real, and it's strong and vocal. Most Americans support Israel. So look, the first thing that needs, if Hamas returned the remaining hostages, Israel would pull out of the Gaza. But until that happens, nothing's going to happen. So, I mean, look, they're between a rock and the hard place, and they've been trying to negotiate a peace accord for a long time. This is one of those issues that's going to hang around for a while, and Kamala Harris is going to try to straddle the middle so she doesn't alienate voters in Michigan, but she also lets people know they're going to support Israel.
All right, we have a debate coming up on September 10th. What happens now? I mean, what does Kamala Harris do? What does Donald Trump do?
Must-see TV, Eric. It's going to be fantastic. So Donald Trump needs to be the disciplined Donald Trump that he was for the first half of the debate against Joe Biden. What Kamala Harris needs to do is throw him off his game, get him to start spouting about the 2020 election being stolen and, you know, crowd size, and making him sound outrageous and
Hannibal
unstable.
Lecter, maybe?
Well, but yes, that's the point.
Okay.
She's going to needle him and try to get him to make a mistake. And whoever is success, look, debates are rarely determinative. However, when they go badly, they go really bad.
Yeah, as we saw, you know, in June.
Joe Biden.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, thank you so much for being
Thanks
here.
for coming in.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a million.